All right, I'd like to call to order this planning and zoning meeting. Today is December 10th, 2024. The time is 6 p.m. Tara, can I get a roll call, please?
Marmon?
Here.
Ritchie? Harris?
Here.
Werdeman? Here. Darling? Here. Stecker?
Here.
Weiss?
Here.
Nate?
Here.
Piper?
Here.
Thank you. First item is agenda approval, approval of December 10th, 2024 agenda. If someone would like to make a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
And second.
Sure.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, same sign. All right, approval of the November 26th, 2024 meeting minutes. If I can get a motion on that.
I'll motion to approve the November 26, 2024 meeting minutes.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, same sign. All right, next would be public comment, but this would be for any item that is not on the agenda. I have anyone in the audience that's here for that. All right, we'll move on to new business then. Item 6A, consider site plan for Indianola Veterinary Clinic parking lot improvement.
Thank you. The owner and applicant in this case is IVC Properties LLC, and they're represented by Wally Peltz with Peltz Design Services. And they're looking for approval of a site plan for parking lot improvements to the existing veterinary clinic there on the west side of Jefferson Way, just north of the extension of Trailbridge Avenue. The property in question is about 4.5 acres in area. It's the entire area outlined in red on the screen. The property is currently zoned Part C2 and Part A1. To the south is the new Emerald Bay development, that PUD down there. So the site plan identifies the improvements to the vet facility, including some demolition work. Everything in red is the existing parking lot pavement out to Jefferson Way. All that stuff will be removed and then replaced. Once the improvements are completed, the number or the square footage of impervious surface goes up from just over 33,000 square feet up to 76,000 square feet. It's a 21.8% increase, or about 1 3/4 acres of pavement there. The site plan requires 41 parking spaces, and the applicant will be providing 61 or 62, including 3 accessible spaces, one at the north end, and then 2 on the south end there. So again, as I said, the vet clinic owns 8 parcels of land, and these improvements will be taking place across 6 of them. So the parking lot expansion will go, this direction and then south. As you can see on the layout plan, they're adding a second entrance there towards the west end of the site. It does in addition to encroaching onto 6 parcels, it does encroach onto a different zoning district as well. According to city code, veterinary clinics aren't permitted in an A1 district, so the expansion of such a use will trigger a rezoning application. So we'll have to work with the applicant on getting that. Access to the site will be provided once the new street is installed. There will be 2 access points off of Trailbridge Avenue. 5-foot sidewalk should be installed on the south end of the site as part of those improvements. The site is already serviced with public utilities. Stormwater detention will be provided with a basin on the north side of the site. The applicant has not yet provided stormwater calculations to make sure everything is in compliance in that way. The applicant, as the site plan requires 20% of open space, the site provides 82.8% open space. And once those improvements are completed, the site plan will provide 61% of open space. No landscape plan has been submitted yet, so I'm not sure if anything will be in compliance in that regards. Not much else. Generally speaking, it's a parking lot expansion. So just looking for your direction. I'm happy to take any questions. Also, the applicant and engineer are in attendance today.
It's probably important to note too that the reason that we are working kind of in partnership with the veterinary clinic as well as the developer of the Emerald Bay development and the city and actually Iowa DOT is because of the realignment of that intersection and the alignment of the veterinary clinic's driveway and parking lot access that ties into the Quick Start development, so those driveways tie together. And towards that end, while Bill is working on all of the development agreement, or all of the planning and zoning and regulations and whatnot, I'm actively working on the development agreement side. Not only to help with the realignment and help with the Quick Start and the parking lot aspects, but also to encourage and work towards the opening up of Fair Acres, which has been a development around since the 1950s that was recorded, but the improvements never went in and all of those parcels were landlocked out there. So just wanted to give you maybe a bigger picture to why the different things are going on. If the developers here that can answer any questions with regard to timing and why they're looking to have that come forward maybe more quickly than having all the things in line.
Staff is working on the first review. That deadline is tomorrow morning, so I hope to have comments to the applicant tomorrow.
Do we have any questions from the commission?
Let me get this straight. They're applying to do a project on land they don't own.
The vet clinic owns all those parcels.
Well, yeah, but the applicant is not, are they the owner?
Yeah.
The vet clinic is the owner.
Okay, they're the owner. Okay, and the zoning, what about it?
I'm not sure if anyone had realized it before, but when the project was submitted to me on Wednesday, I started to look into it. And it was one of the first things that I realized with the zoning is different. So the expansion of this project into a district that doesn't permit veterinary clinics poses a little bit of a problem that needs to get resolved. So you can see, so the parking area, the parking area will encroach into to the south 5 lots of the green. So the stormwater detention area will be up in this area, and the parking expansions will come out here into these 5 agricultural districts.
With the goal of changing that zoning to C2 to match.
So are they gonna apply for that?
It's
To
a
change
comment.
the zoning?
It's a comment that I'll have when I send out the comment letter.
Okay. And what's the issue about stormwater?
We just need stormwater calculations. A stormwater management plan should have been submitted with the application, but we haven't gotten one yet to make sure that the intakes are sufficient, that the pond design is sufficient. It's something our city engineer will look at once that's submitted.
And there's no landscape plan.
No. Parking lot expansions require a landscaping plan.
So we're being asked to recommend something about this when there are all these loose ends hanging around.
I guess that's Al's line of questioning is kind of what I was thinking is kind of, it feels like this is a little bit incomplete at this point for us to be considering a recommendation. It would have been good to have the zoning request, the rezoning request, and the full site plan with all of the calculations, just the full package to consider before this.
So I guess my train of thought is the options would be to table it until we have all of those documents, or approve with contingencies of a landscape plan, et cetera.
Stormwater management
Yeah.
plan. The
I guess
rezoning.
I'm not only concerned about this project, I guess I'm concerned about what kind of precedent it might set for us, because I'm sure if we really stretch and are really flexible here, we're going to hear about it again in the future with somebody else that wants us to be really flexible. And I have mixed feelings about this right now.
Come on up.
All right. Good evening, Wally Peltz with Peltz Design Services, 2323 Dixon Street, Des Moines, Iowa, 50316. This is not our preferred method either. We usually like to have complete sets. It has been, if I can jump back to the summertime when we started on this site plan, It's been in negotiations with the vet clinic so that the city wouldn't have to condemn their property. So it's been a slow negotiation, which has also included the Fair Acre development, which has been landlocked in a troublesome piece for the city since the 1950s. So my client, Mr. Rognus, has been able to acquire that property. We've been trying to incorporate it for Emerald Bay portion north in exchange for the vet clinic donating the right of way that's necessary to make it. Otherwise, I can't pave in that area. And to redo their entrance, which is not a great entrance. It's not compliant with the DOT and all these things. All of these things, as we were negotiating, came to a head. And then if we get deferred, we're afraid that the Quick Start deal will potentially go away. And we've done a ton of infrastructure and all these things. Previously, we had negotiated and spoken with Charlie, and I know you had staff turnovers. I'm not blaming anyone for it, but this is such a unique situation where we have the DOT involved, we have the city staff involved, we have a vet clinic involved, and then we have land sellers to the north, and they're all tied and intermingled together. So what I would ask you is that it truly is a parking lot expansion. The zoning issues that I would describe, there are many instances where we have parking lots that are either satellite or something else that are not in the proper zoning. What I can assure you is that we will get the zoning changed. The ownership group has already agreed to do that application. We were just not able to get it done because there's more than one owner of that vet clinic group that we need to get signatures and applications on. Second item is the right of way. If we don't get that right of way, that throws our timing off. And it's part of the negotiations with the vet clinic because they were afraid, well, how are we going to get our trailers in? How are we going to do all these things that they service? They're one of the few that still service cattle, service horses, any larger type livestock. And so it was a slow, tedious process to finally get them to approve a site layout. I can assure you from our end, the detention basin is sized properly, but there was also some concerns about keeping the tree line as much as we can. So the reason we didn't submit them because we're still tweaking some of that because we want to see if we can't save that. The second item is there is a septic system that we need to abandon and then plumb this direction, which I don't have all the details on either. So to get them to approve or to sign off, part of Mr. Agnes's agreement is that this parking addition gets done in exchange for that right of way to make it a public street. So it's a convoluted roundabout way of trying to get this done. We will submit a landscaping plan, but again, I need the signature of not only Mr. Agnes, but of the vet clinic so they can approve it. They've made some minor changes already. But this is again, it's a parking lot expansion. We're tearing out everything that's there to make the grades work. And again, it's gonna certainly improve that intersection because now the entrance was within 50 feet of the intersection, which just wasn't gonna work. DOT wasn't gonna approve it, all these things. So it all kind of muddles together. But it is truly a parking lot expansion. So everything that's out there in gravel will be going to paving. And then additionally, that rear turnaround space that we had to add, because we didn't want trailers coming in, winding through the cars. They wanted them to come through the back. So we ended up having to do all of that. Again,
It's probably also important to note that while our development agreement is not yet finalized and we're still putting language together and we'll be going through our final negotiations with the developer on this, it is anticipated in the terms that we're working towards is that the developer is doing all of the site work, site plan, putting all the improvements in, negotiating, putting all the zoning changes, doing all that work, that the city will be rebating them with TIF dollars in the back end to pay for the improvements of the veterinary clinic as well as the intersection all of those improvements therein. So we do have some confidence that it will be done because if not done, the city won't.
And I'll step aside and let Mr. Rognus address any other questions you might have.
Appreciate your time. Jesse Rognus, 12509 Fulton Street. I think Bill and Ben did a pretty good job of explaining it, but it has been a process, and with the turnover, to you guys, it looks like it's incomplete, but this has been a 2-year process for me, and I'm at the point with Quick Start where they're like, are they gonna get this road or not? Are we gonna make a deal with the vet clinic or not? Otherwise, we need to go and do something else. And it's taking a lot to get to this point. And at the end of the day, it's more than what we're asking the vet clinic to do and compromise with and give up. Seems like a little piece, but to them, it's a big piece, because when that intersection was put in their mind, they were wronged. In their mind, it wasn't handled properly. The proper easements obviously were never got at that time, or we wouldn't be sitting here right now. So this has been a process for me to go through for the last year plus, just to navigate those waters and get that done. Initially, we were told that this could be included as part of our project and just added to our plans. That's why if anybody's looked at our Emerald Bay plans, pretty much this was included in there. And it was gonna be a simple exchange because we needed this from them. And it was, now we gotta run through a full site plan. And that's where some of the back and forth delays have happened on our end as well. Not the preferred method, obviously, for any of us, but I'm telling you that if this gets tabled, it doesn't put me in a really good spot to move forward. And at the end of the day, we're cleaning up a mess that's not even to mention the Fair Acres mess that I'm working on cleaning up, but even their driveway is really that intersection. So there is no way to put a street through there without completely cutting off the vet clinic's driveway. And that's the point of the realignment and the new driveways for them to access and have access for their customers. I would argue too that this is a very established lot that already has a lot of existing landscaping. So we are doing a simple parking lot improvement, also putting them on city sewer and water. Eventually, right now, another problem they have is they have a 1 or 2 inch water service that runs all the way south to, I'm gonna screw up the neighborhood. It's the Hillcrest neighborhood. And it runs along the whole ditch line all the way up to their property. So if anything ever happens there, there's a lot of pipe there. When we get our new main in, that's one of the parts of this is we'll tie them in. And then we'll abandon their septic as well and tie them into the new sewer system when that's installed. So yeah, not the preferred method. The piece about the properties being zoned differently, we just got popped up this week that was a problem. I've already talked to the vet owners. They're fine with clumping it together. They don't really understand why it matters, but their intention, they rent to the people who operate that, and their intention is to someday sell to them. They don't intend on ever parceling it off or doing anything. So whether it took something as simple as a retracement, a boundary retracement, or a lot tie, there's ways to quickly probably get through that process as well.
Thank you.
Any questions?
What type of time frame do you have with your future customers on that property?
Which one?
Well, any of them, you sound like you got your back against the wall with a
Yeah,
couple of potential ones. What type of timeline?
Quick
are they
Start wants to
giving you?
close in our due diligence is supposed to end in December 20th. They want to close following that and start building in March. They have an aggressive schedule that would have them open in June, July?
It was June.
Yeah, June, July. I could share that schedule once they allow me to. But without this piece and without the access, there's no way to make it
I
happen.
guess my only observation is we're the first step. It's gonna have to go to city council.
Yeah, and I've talked to a lot of the council members to try to get support for this, knowing.
But like it's already been said, we might be setting a precedence here if we don't dot our i's and cross our t's. I don't think you're gonna get any pushback once everything is presented. I think in this format, there seem to be some red flags. I mean, and there's nothing against what you've done and the efforts you've put to this point. I don't know how it's gonna be perceived even at the next level, if that makes sense.
Well, Rich, I can tell you from my point of view and talking to some of the other developers leading the council meeting last week, I think it's gonna be a breath of fresh air.
Well, I think all the positives are there. Don't
Yeah,
get me
and I
wrong.
don't think it's gonna be like, oh, they're helping this guy out and not that guy. I think it's like, oh, we're starting to go in the right direction here. And these are the kind of projects that if we want to have them, I develop around Des Moines, and I can tell you, I'm not asking for anything that's so crazy out of line, another city wouldn't allow me to do it.
Although I would say, so to Rich's point and Al's point, like this all looks great. Everything you've said looks great. You've done a ton of work. I'm super excited to see it come. But I've brought site plans to cities and they will not put it on an agenda until the whole checklist of things has been completed. So I get, that's where I'm a little bit, I think I'm hearing what Rich is saying is like, I just feel like the cart's a little bit ahead of the horse.
And then that's why I just asked your perspective on, I don't know when the next planning and zoning meeting would be in conjunction with the next council meeting. But is 2 more weeks too much to ask for your customer? I don't know.
Yeah,
You really
the
only want to do
timeline
weeks.
is, I mean, we are up against it, and then you have the holidays that start to mess with all of your meetings. And Carrie, I don't know which exact city or council members or plans you put it in front of, but this is a very simple site plan. It's just a parking lot expansion. And I could also point to projects that I've done in other areas that I've had permits to build before we ever had the site plan approved. So it really comes down to you guys working with me. That's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for some grace.
I'll add with, my experience and background in this. I mean, I've been in the same challenges before. I'd like to see, I don't know if anybody has it available, of course, but I mean, if you say it was previously already kind of in the PUD of the Emerald Bay, it's just kind of overlooked. It sounds like it was already kind of a plan, but now we're kind of, it was caught this week or whatever,
Yeah, we've always had it in the plans that have been submitted to the city. It's been talked about since the beginning. This issue of access has been number one from the beginning. Because without that, nothing can go in there.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, that.
If you go back to the slide before, or where it shows the
I think where the confusion in the gap.
overlay, this intersection is his driveway.
Yeah.
There's no way in.
Where the confusion in the gap are is there are 2 concurrent processes going on. There's you've been through a PUD, there's the development agreement and all those processes that are going on. We're talking about negotiating and all that. But there is still the planning and zoning city council formal processes. You go through site plans and site plan reviews and all that type of thing to advance each phase through that standard process. And so it's very easy, especially with the staff transitions of late and all that type of thing, for things to get confused that advancing on one is not necessarily advancing on the other. And so submissions coming in could create confusion, and I can definitely see that.
There was even times where between transitions, several weeks went by where things weren't moving forward, and I don't know who you put that on. I mean, but I'm in the middle of it.
So if we were to theoretically, if we were to recommend approval, and I guess I'm looking to you, Ben, what would go to city council? Would it just be, I mean, would they be considering it based on all of these factors? Cause at that point, my thought process is why do we even consider it? Like, why does it even come to planning and zoning if it's all just, if city staff says it meets everything, then why don't we just say if city staff says it meets everything, then it moves forward without our consideration?
We do need to have mature processes that do come through planning commission and are fleshed out, and Bill's doing a great job to try to bring that through. And now that he's in place and I'm not the interim guy and maybe the confusion guy in between all of that, so I accept all responsibility of the time between Charlie and Bill. Because I'm an accountant, I'm not a community development guy. So if there is any loss of time and whatnot, maybe I take that responsibility solely on myself, because I think what Bill is doing is getting us to where we need to be, having those mature processes. So with that said, you really do have 4 choices. And I think what the developer is asking for here is you can approve. And I don't think anyone's expecting you to approve as is the way it is. You can approve conditional and set those expectations of what you want to include and require. You can table or you can deny. It's actually the table that probably hurts the developer the most, because it requires that you come back here to this level. If you deny, it still can advance to city council. These things still can be gathered and put together before city council. The only negative aspect of it is it requires a supermajority of the council when it gets to city council, because it doesn't have a planning commission's approval.
Yeah, I'd like to say of the four choices, that the table, I'd rather you just don't even consider it. Because to his point, the mature processes, if they were in place, I'm not blaming anybody here.
You can blame
It's-
me, it's okay.
No, not at all. He's everybody's been great to work with. But if those processes were all in place from the time we started, any one of those, Charlie, Emily, whoever leaving, would have never caused the kind of issues, delays, repeating of processes that we already thought were in process that weren't. None of that would have happened. And here we are. And I'm at a point now where it's drug along to the point where I'm at the final spot. I've extended with Quick Start as many times as they feel comfortable. And I think I'm on 6 or 7. That's where we're at. And I'm just asking to approve with contingencies, and we'll work on that diligently in the background and get it to council or deny it. And I'll try to get a super majority, because that's my only chance for success with this development. And then at that point, if I can't, I have put a lot of work into trying to make this go, collecting properties, tax sales, trying to clean up a mess that I don't even know why I had decided to take it on. It's been very tedious to deal with. And the financial impact for me, if this doesn't go through, is gonna be to the point where I don't know if it's worth it. It might not be worth it to keep moving here.
If we were to approve the site plan subject to remaining staff concerns and comments, how long is that going to take, and will it meet the schedule to go to the city council?
I have a lot of heartburn taking this to the next council meeting. A, I'm gonna be out of the country for the next week to put anything together. B, I don't have a full application. I don't have fees paid. I don't have the items that we've already discussed. I would like those things to come in before I would entertain putting it onto a council agenda. That way I'm not up here explaining to the council the same things I'm explaining to you. My job is to give you guys a nicely wrapped gift package. Here, we've reviewed this internally. We have no concerns. We want you to understand that staff is doing our diligence and reviewing things thoroughly. We want to give you the opportunity to not even ask any questions. We want to give you this nicely wrapped package. If I take this to council, I feel like it's going to be the kind of the same thing if it goes next week, and I have some trouble with that.
So
Well, if this,
oh, sorry.
okay, go ahead.
If we approve with contingencies, you're saying that before it can go to council, those contingencies will have to be met.
My preference.
I would say
It
if you're
could
gonna
go
go,
to council without those things being resolved.
It can still be contingent prior to us actually building it by the council as well.
Once council approves things, we have the chance to lose our footing with the project because they've already got council approval.
Losing your footing here, though, I mean, my footing's lost.
in a real, I mean, looking at it from a real world perspective, like literally, if we did this with over at, what's the village? I know we approved that with a bunch of site plan and a bunch of contingencies. I don't remember, maybe I wasn't at that one. Did that come back to us? Anybody remember? Cause I mean, I think, I remember it coming back. I thought I remembered seeing it again.
No, I don't think so, because we approved it based off of those things being fixed, so then it wouldn't come back.
And did it not go to council until those were?
If it's approved with contingency, typically 2 things happen. One, it doesn't come back because it's approved. But those contingencies have to be met before it gets
Before it
approved.
goes to council.
I have another procedural question. What's the zoning precedent? What do you have to do to get it rezoned? And there's supposed to be a public notice? How do you sidebar that? I wonder.
Once I get the application, then we'll figure out which meeting it's gonna have to go to. We'll have to do the public meeting or the newspaper notices. We'll have to mail out neighboring notices. So that stuff takes, and I'm willing to work and do things a little bit out of order to help. My job's not to deny a project. My job is to get from initial submittal to approval and not deny things. So doing my part to ensure that everything is in order. But yeah, I mean, as soon as I get that application and the fees paid, I'll start running that
So
process.
that would have to be the consideration as we write this proposal, I guess, from how it's presented for approval to take it to the next step.
What we're trying to get to be quite frank and honest in the whole thing is we're trying to get enough comfort to the veterinary clinic
Mhm.
that the that in order to let go of your easement and to provide the easement so that this intersection can be realigned, that one, we're going to take it through a process to rezone, make it compliant, do all the things that we need to do to have this parking lot go in, and the city is concurrently working on the development agreement to pay for that. That will give them the comfort to give the developer the easement that they need. Once they have the easement that they need, it gives, they can move forward and close on the property with Quick Start because they have the confidence that they need that the road's actually gonna go in. So everybody's kind of standing in a circle, waiting for the other to try to
And
help.
am I wrong in assuming that before we go and start building on this, just because it gets approved by you and the council, do we still have to get a permit to do any of this? Is there any other step that? I mean,
There had to be some type of building permit with conditions.
yeah, I guess I'm under the understanding that if this gets approved by you guys and or council, then none of that work is gonna take place till those conditions have been met with the zoning, and so are the people with the vet clinic, they understand that process. So the rezoning, the detention calculations, some of those,
In the landscaping plan, I think
the
those are the
landscaping
three,
plan.
those
Yeah.
are the three
I
key.
mean, those aren't really huge issues that we can't get it. The biggest one is the zoning one, obviously, and that's more of a procedural timeframe to get it done. The major thing we're trying to do is get that easement agreement so we can have the access to even get a road in there.
The biggest thing is.
We probably
like-
won't start on their site work until spring.
Right. Well, the biggest thing is we look at is like, how does the vet clinic not benefit from this?
Yeah.
All the multiple things that are, I mean, more parking, a lot better access for all their trailers, you know, I mean, it's a busy business. And then all the, you know, sewer, I mean, how.
I'm not
water-
sure in what context you're going with that, but if you
Well, I'm
talk
just-
to
I'm
them,
just
you might
giving-
hear a
it's like-
little different
it's a
story
it's a
based on
benefit.
just some of their history.
Yeah.
And it's just the disruption of dealing with the construction and running a business is kind of theirs, you know,
Yeah.
transferring water services, sewer services, parking lot, you know,
It's all bonus to them.
it is the way, remember the people that are.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
not when it's happening.
With
And the-
inconveniences.
And
of
then
the-
there's an owner and then there's the operator too. So the operator likes it the way it is. If they had their way, they probably don't even want to be in the city. They would rather be in the county. You know, and so there's all these different internal battles that are.
Basically, what you're looking at, a motion going forward, moving this forward, so it gives goodwill towards.
Yeah.
Your tenant, possible tenant or client, whatever, so they can say, okay, this is moving at least, you know. And obviously, this whole PUD is good for the city, you know, it's really good for the safety of that intersection. I mean, obviously, we can't do this without,
We're adding
For the
turn lanes.
yeah.
So you have the big trailers and everything. We're adding turn lanes. We're adding crossing for pedestrians. The other thing that will get in front of you sooner or later, I can't share the names yet, but there's another interested big player retail that wants to come out there and not local, not even really local to Iowa. So it's a good business to bring in that is new.
In the Emerald Bay.
Yeah, it's on a retail lot. Yep. And it's and I got an LOI this week and they turned around with a PA today. So I mean, they're serious. They want to go. The schedule from Quick Start though is aggressive. They want to start building in March 17th. And I asked them about, hey, what if we can't meet this time frame or whether they're managing this one internally within their own staff. And they said, this is our schedule. It doesn't change. The end date is the end date. Like, you've never had one run long because of weather or whatever? Like, no, it is what it says it is. We work and keep every phase on schedule. So if this doesn't go through or we don't have some sort of compromise to move forward, I don't even know where it goes.
So I'm excited about this project. I want to be clear in that. I think that I don't have any concerns with what we're visually seeing. My concern falls back to, so would the intent to be to bring this to council as is next week without the contingent pieces in place? Or would you be looking to bring it to council, I guess, probably after the first of the year when you have these contingencies resolved?
No, I'd like to bring it right to council and let them approve it with additional contingencies if they're not done by then, which obviously like the rezoning piece. understanding that I won't move forward on any of that improvement until those pieces are completed.
Maybe another way to answer that question is, in relation to the other process, let me maybe share the timeline, because maybe what you're looking for is leverage or contingencies or something like that along the way.
It's more of just really where I'm coming from is like, what is the point of even bringing a site plan to planning and zoning or council if we're just saying, as long as staff approves all of these, then there's no point of us wasting time here. It might as well just be a by right development where staff reviews it, which I'm fine with too.
We thought
But-
that's what this was gonna be at some point, is a staff level approval on that site portion to help get this easement. That's where this started way back in the beginning for us. So exactly what you just said is what we thought the process was gonna be. When I had to go back to the vet clinic and tell them, nope, sorry, that's not the deal. Here's the deal now. They're like, whoa, we spent 2 months with attorneys and $50,000 and, I mean, it blew up.
So maybe to answer the other,
And meanwhile, you guys changed staff internally. And I started over.
so to go back to that, the development agreement requires several steps. One of those steps is that they have to set a public hearing. We have to get the language all agreed upon and pulled together, and there's a lot of work in setting up a URA and a development agreement and having it ready in time for the 19th, which the 19th would set a public hearing. It has to be at least 28 days out from the next meeting. So the development agreement side is for sure going to be at least January 20th if all the stars align before it could come to them. In between, it has to come to the planning commission, and it also has to go to a meeting with the school district and the county, where they have the opportunity to share their concerns and thoughts and whatnot on it. So there's a lot of steps that are involved on the development agreement side too, and we're gonna be working on all those, but there's a lot of, just so you know, that other piece is going on.
That's a good point.
With regard to this though, and if the planning commission is feeling concerned or feeling stretched out of your comfort zone, maybe the appropriate thing so that you don't set precedents would be to deny it. Because if you do deny it, then that at least, sets your precedent going forward. You don't have a package that's complete. You don't feel comfortable with it, whatnot, but it doesn't necessarily preclude the developer from being able to go to the next steps. But with
This is a
every bit of
unique
advice
situation.
given, saying get everything in as fast as you possibly can.
Agreed, and I would, in a perfect world, you'd approve it with contingencies. This has not been a perfect process here. And yeah,
I'd like to ask 2 questions. Ben, you mentioned a fiscal aspect of the city.
Mhm.
Run that by us again, would you?
It is anticipated that, and this is, of course, subject to many steps along the way, including the approval of the city council with public hearings along the way and all that. So what it is anticipated that the city would be working with the developer to have a URA created, urban renewal area created, which creates tax dollars generated from this area. So it's the increment generated specifically from this area, not anything coming in from any other source. And the increment would be used to reimburse the developer for the aspects of what we were just talking about, putting in the infrastructure improvements with regard to the intersection, the vet clinic, the park that would be going in, those different improvements that would benefit the city. The developer would be fronting and taking care of and putting in with a remuneration with tax rebate of their own dollars coming back to them and to repay for those improvements that are going in. If the developer never performs, then those rebates never come.
if I don't build it, it doesn't happen.
Okay.
And a lot,
Wait a minute. Second question. If we were to approve this in kind of its incomplete state, does that put the city in any jeopardy if someone were to challenge the process?
I'm not an attorney, so I can't answer that question directly. But you are an advisory. I would say that would definitely be the case if it was the city council taking that action. As an approving authority, you are a recommending body. And so that would be the difference there.
But isn't that what if we recommend it go to city council, that's kind of what we're asking city council to do.
It would be a recommendation, correct? Contingent upon these things, yes.
But what Al just asked you, if it's a liability for us to do, understanding, I understood you to say no because we're a recommending body, but if council made that same action, it could be.
Could.
So I feel like what you're saying is
I'm
if
not
we
an attorney,
send,
but I-
if we send it to council and they vote to approve with the contingencies not resolved, they could be creating a liability.
Arguably. Again, I'm not an attorney.
But the building permit has not been issued yet. Based on these contingencies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the developer still has to go through a process to go get a piece of paper that says, I can build it now.
Yeah,
Our building
I think,
official is here.
There hasn't been a permit issued yet, but they can't start building until there's a road in anyways. You gotta be an entrance in there somehow.
So we have a lot of steps. So then the question becomes, what can we do to catapult these steps? So that you don't lose any business. You're at risk already. You've already put forth a lot of money to do this. I just want to make sure, like I said 20 minutes ago, we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's. How we get to that point, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what the proper path is, so.
I mean, if it helps you, if it helps the process, I mean, I would be willing, I'm just discussing, I would be willing to make a motion to deny us recommending so that we aren't holding you up from going to council and asking for a supermajority. And I guess I would recommend in the interim, the city attorney is able to give some advisement on what happens. I mean, obviously that's up to council, but it seems like there's some questions that need to be answered as far as what does this create a situation where we're circumventing a documented site plan approval process, and does that open up some legal concerns? But if it's in the project's interest to deny versus table, I guess.
I don't understand what the difference is between approving this and with contingencies any different than when we approved the
Because
East Village one or whatever it is.
when we've approved with contingencies before, I guess my understanding, and maybe I've been misunderstanding, but my understanding has been that those contingencies are resolved before it goes to council. And we're specifically saying here, these contingencies will not be resolved before it goes to council.
Everything the planning commission should have a review or two under its belt and resubmittals in our back pocket to provide you guys with the latest and greatest updated. All the calculations work, all the parking works, everything works. And I was asked on Wednesday to take this to P&Z tonight, and I was uncomfortable doing so because it hasn't got through a full staff review yet. And I have comments in a letter that they don't even have yet because staff isn't done reviewing it.
I guess my question would be, have we sent other things to council that haven't had all the contingencies met? I mean, I don't know the process of what happens after.
When I take things to council, those comments, if they're not all addressed, there's a couple of outlier, a label is wrong, something like that. Everything is already addressed prior to council because they're the final approval. They're who signs the resolutions. Everything I take to you guys, I like to have pretty well tied up, and the council, I like that really tied up.
I have a question, just technically about the A1 zoning portion. Let's go there. So if the street going in and the DOT involvement wasn't an issue, someone can put a parking lot on, someone could have theoretically laid concrete on those lots and it not been a process.
It's the do you consider it's an expansion of the existing use? Or are you just putting concrete on in an egg zone? I think is what you're asking, right?
Well, I mean, I had just asked Rich about like, it's not typical that we have to go through a whole approval process for a parking lot getting redone. It's only because of the street coming through and the right of way.
in the retention pond with the
And,
calculations.
yeah, that, and
What-
so,
What triggered a major site plan was impervious surface increase of more than 2,000 square feet. So that's what triggered a major site plan with all these different requirements, landscaping plans, stormwater management, things like that. If it were a minor site plan, it wouldn't be before you.
And that's where we've been kicked back and forth, whether it was gonna be a major or minor. That's why I got put on the, I mean, there's. I guess there's ways we could have maybe looked at phasing it or something to try to work around that with the existing concrete in sight, but. We're in the middle of trying to get an easement that wasn't already acquired instead of having to have the city help us go through some sort of condemnation process to get access, and this was the route we were guided in the beginning.
I mean, I can see both sides of it, where I can see why you would want to deny it, because it could open us up for liability issues. But I also see approving it with contingencies, because you can't get a building permit until those contingencies are met, so.
So do we write down the amount of contingencies and what the contingencies are and then vote on them?
Well, it would be like a vote for all of the contingencies on that approval.
Right, and so far I'm hearing 4. Zoning, SWIP plan, landscape. Was there a 4th one?
Yeah, it's gonna need final platter to bring all the lots together.
Okay, so there's 4. We need to make a motion for those 4 contingencies. Am I oversimplifying it now?
May I make a suggestion? Is it possible? Sorry to interrupt. So as you all know, I do a lot of presentations throughout Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa. I've presented at P&Z meetings where certain city engineers don't even have their staff comments back to us, yet we've already been posted on the schedule, so it's subject to whatever their review comments are. I would want to make sure that we're addressing Bill's comments. I'd like to see his comments, because I think we're kind of just stabbing in the dark what they are. But if you trust your staff, which he's been diligent, my recommendation, which we experience in many, many places, is approval subject to addressing staff comments. Whether it goes to council or not has sometimes been deferred. It just depends on the jurisdiction, on what the staff is comfortable with, right, at that point. Sometimes we've taken it where there still are contingencies, or things that are beyond our control, gas main easements, other utilities, something that we don't control. Again, I think this is part of our issue, is that this wasn't under our control. And we originally were gonna just redo their entrance and move their lot down. And then it grew and it grew and it grew what their requirement was to get that right away. So I think we've all intended to get here much faster than we got here. My suggestion or my request would be that you approve subject to staff comments. And then city council, again, until they issue a building permit, I don't think I can't pull that grading permit to do it. They won't sign off on my stormwater management plan or my SWIP permit. And again, this will be constructed later. I don't think there's much risk to it. And from all the different P&Zs that I've been to, this happens 50% of the time, subject to comments being addressed. And then the question becomes whether council would approve it subject to comments. We will do our best efforts to address every comment I get from him. You said I'm gonna get some tomorrow. We would make a best effort to get all of them addressed that I can, which I think I can. There was just some, again, I have to get lots of approvals from about 4 different entities to make sure everyone's okay with it. And then, but landscaping plan shouldn't be an issue. Stormwater calcs I have, but we were changing the shape of the pond potentially because some of the treat area and some possible septic conflict which we didn't know about yet. And then just that would be my request. is that we do that. And I don't think it sets a bad precedent in terms of, we've done it in many communities from all the people that we've represented in the past. So that would be my humble request. And it could even be a contingency of the site plan that construction doesn't begin until zoning is approved and the building permit's issued, right? Or none of those things can go until that happens. But it shows, again, it gives comfort, as Ben was saying, to the vet clinic, because they're just spooked. They feel they got burned by the DOT. They looked at the nice entrances downstream, how everybody else got some good stuff, and they ended up with something awkward. And ended up taking 220 feet of right of way in front of their business. So it was a big deal to them. So that would be my request. Thank you.
I have a comment for the board here too. I mean, I've seen personally in the last, I don't know how many years that, I mean, City of Indianola is not easy to work with. I mean, we've lost out on multiple development opportunities. I personally have friends that have missed out on sales of lots because of the difficulty to work here. I mean, if we want to grow, we got to be a little flexible, I feel like. And we have a big tenant coming, you know, the possibility of another one that's out of state, possibly even. I know there's a lot of pushback from Indianola as far as how it wants to grow and in which direction. But I mean, I almost moved my whole business out of here because of all the pushback I got from the county. So just going through myself, I would say sometimes there's ways to expedite things, and we know that we trust Bill. Bill said he doesn't want to push this forward in his eyes until, you know, he has the time to go through it. I mean, we've always trust Charlie. I think that, you know, we are a recommendation board, and it's a unique situation. I think that time is of the essence, so I understand it.
I'm just standing up. I'm tired of sitting down.
I can speak for some of the landscaping too. That's currently putting in a crematorium that does have a building permit, that they are required to put in landscaping screening just to screen that off. So part of that would be included with their crematorium.
It's a comment that I have on my letter.
Can I ask a clarifying question to Wally? So those items, sorry, the items that you just listed off that you have almost right, like, do you think that you will have those submitted prior to council? If
We can get those done.
tomorrow or the next day, something,
I'd like to see his letter before I 100% commit to it.
Trust us.
I do. I mean, the staff's been great to work with on the multiple projects that we've been doing in town. So that's not an issue. I think there's just, this thing has morphed into something that we just didn't expect. We expected it to be a minor site plan, not a lot of huge paving, just relocating that entrance. It became, hey, when we relocate the entrance, the trailers can't, some of those 40-foot cattle trailers can't snake through that parking lot.
that's why all that
Add-
extra concrete had to be added.
That's where all this is coming in, because we needed all of a sudden a second entrance. And I'm like, oh, and it just kind of morphed itself. And that's where we've ended up here. So we're just asking for your assistance.
So it's not that it started at this amount of concrete, which would trigger this process, and we just sort of glossed over it. It's that the amount of concrete has increased to trigger this process.
It increased it, which triggered a complete review, which they're currently not compliant stormwater wise and everything else. This will bring them, it triggered it to make it compliant with the city code. So that's where we've kind of ended up. Not intentionally.
I'm like with, his point about how not only does Indianola Vet Clinic gain, I think City of Indianola gains, we're getting them into compliance, it sounds like Jesse just really wanted to go ahead and make a better entrance for him. Now he's been forced to triple the parking lot, I feel like on goodwill that they're willing to do all this stuff that was more than they had planned to begin with. I think they're gonna go in there and do their due diligence on some landscaping and SWIP plans, so.
The question still becomes how to reword it.
Yep.
I think there seems to be a positive vibe here, if you will. We just got to word it properly and.
And in my opinion, I like Wally's idea as far as, put it on staff comments, because, you know, if we forget something in our 3, 4 points, then, you know, we're putting on the professional
All
that,
site plan requirements and stuff,
yeah.
staff comments and
Yeah.
approval.
Yeah.
That's one of the choices here that Bill listed for us was.
Yeah, I
to
think the
approve
option-
Site plan subject to all remaining staff comments.
For about the first time in my planning career, I've not provided a recommendation to you. So I'll let you discuss it amongst yourselves and provide us with direction.
Yeah,
Seems like there's a lot more positives that outweigh the negatives. The concern for us, committee, is setting a precedent that's gonna put us in a poor position in the future, which none of us want that to continue to happen either. So, but it's a scarcity mentality to say that the future tenant's gonna walk unless this happens right now, but there's a lot of time, money, effort, energy invested to get them here to this point too. So I would like to see it move forward, subject to the approval of staff comments.
Is that a motion?
I will make the motion to do that.
I'll second it.
can we get a roll call vote, please?
Marmon,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Wordman? Yes. Darling,
Yes.
Stecker,
Yes.
Vice,
Yes.
Nate,
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Right, thank
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Thank you so much.
My hands don't sweat very often and they're sweaty. I really do appreciate it.
All right, let's move on to 6B, review and consideration of the proposed Village Urban Renewal Plan for its conformance with Elevate Indianola Comprehensive Plan.
I don't have any slides for this one.
Okay. Do you mind if I project? So this is a creation of a new URA again for the village. This is for a residential improvement. Basically, I'm gonna project here if I can. Thank you. So this is the executive summary from the plan. Wesley Life is going to be expanding the village. It is a total capital investment of $46 million. They're going to be adding 56 independent living units and generate roughly 2.7 million in new operating revenue. They're going to be doing that through a new main entrance, providing enhanced sense of arrival along with expanded parking. They're going to be expanding the library, the community room, renovating multi-purpose room, expanding the wellness center that they have, and the cardio and exercise, the kitchen and the restaurant area, expanding the dining, including outdoor decking, the street bar, expanding the healthcare center, new additional independent living building, 28 apartments, 28 new townhomes, and 25 existing Aspen independent living units are going to be added. So basically every one of their offerings that they have, or if you're active senior all the way to needing nursing care, they have, they're going to be expanding in this development. They're asking for the creation of a URA, which would allow us to segregate funds out. Part of theirs is a taxable and part of it's non-taxable. And so the taxable portion, of course, creates the TIF, and the TIF portion would be going in. Because it is residential, they can only put the improvements in, we can only remunerate them for publicly dedicated improvements that come in. So that would be the road and any utilities that would be coming in. We can't improve or pay towards any of the actual building improvements. This, I believe, has come to the planning commission in the past as far as the road configuration. Again, two different paths. This one's further advanced on the actual development side versus the development agreements catching up. So you've already seen the road and the cul-de-sac that would be coming in, and the expansion of the entire development. Some of the renderings that they've provided. And one of the steps in the creation of a URA is that we bring this before the planning commission to ensure that it is in compliance with the comprehensive plan and that it aligns with our overall economic development strategy.
Any questions from the commission on this one? Do we have anyone in the audience that's here to speak on this item? Would anyone like to make a motion on this one?
It's not so much a motion with the first and a second, it's just the general conformance
Oh,
of you guys
okay.
just have to agree that it is in compliance with our comprehensive plan.
Would everybody agree?
Yes, you don't need any action, you just need
It's not an action
an
item.
acknowledgement.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
It's important to note that I did, of course, reach out to have the meeting, or Jackie reached out to have a meeting with the county and the school district. They did not come and participate. I think it's because it doesn't have a negative impact on the school district.
Oh,
It was just-
They won't get many more students out of that.
No,
I don't think so.
not like Old Testament.
All right, and do we have anything for the building permit report?
No.
What about current projects?
They're all wrapping up.
Zooms.
Trying to do some housekeeping items.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, meeting is adjourned.
Guys all again.
My last